What's going on, everybody? C4 here. Welcome back to the channel, and today this is one of the dumbest and, for me, funnest videos I get to do at the end of the draft process, and that is I get to be Howie Roseman for a day. What I am going to do is I'm going to repick what I would have done with the Eagles selections in the 2021 NFL draft. And to make it like for like, I will be going along with any trades that the Philadelphia Eagles do make, just so that essentially I'm picking at the exact same positions with the exact same board available to me. So that when all said and done, I mean, these videos here aren't going to be, I mean, maybe they could look great and or bad right away for rookie seasons, but it's more so 2-3 years into these guys' careers, we can truly see who was better, C4 or Howie Roseman, because constantly I like the meme Howie Roseman. I think looking at big picture, obviously we should post up here the actual Philadelphia Eagles draft. I think now, when all said and done, it wasn't a bad draft whatsoever. I think, I mean, you look at Dane Brugler, who I think is one of the top guys in the draft community. He gave Philadelphia the best draft this year. I don't think it's that good, but I think it's like B plus, somewhere in that territory. For Philadelphia, a team that has not drafted particularly well over the last couple of years, it was a stellar draft for Philadelphia, but there definitely were selections that I personally would have gone slightly different direction. I think I don't want to say Philadelphia went all in on BPA, no regard to whether some of their players will contribute as rookies in 2021 or not, but they definitely kind of went long-term with a lot of their picks, where me personally, I would have went guys that can contribute in 2021 and absolutely also would contribute long-term to this Philadelphia Eagles squad. So without further ado, let's get into it. We start at pick number 10, and I'm staying with what the Eagles did. The Eagles traded up to leapfrog the New York Giants, who absolutely, while Philadelphia was sitting there at 12, were definitely thinking that they were going to get Devontae Smith. That is what has to happen for Philadelphia. The Slim Reaper, I'm excited for it. That's the jersey I'm going to get. You will be seeing throughout the Eagles season in 2021, C4 rocking a Devontae Smith, number 6 Philadelphia Eagle jersey. I just think, you know, what we get with him, yeah, weight concerns, yeah, sure. But, like, for me, he kind of, like, I think he could be like the Allen Iverson for the Philadelphia Eagles. You know, Allen Iverson at point guard. I mean, I wasn't a huge basketball fan, but I always knew, like, Allen Iverson was the shit. He was a little bit undersized, maybe not prototypical for a point guard, but he's a legend. Absolute legend. Was one of the best point guards in his time. And he overcame, you know, this general perception that there were size concerns. And I feel like we're getting a little bit of that in Devontae Smith. I'm a huge fan. I think his route running, he's faster than expected. I would love just to have a little bit of like a baseline of a 40-yard dash time. You know, because you look at film, like he's probably high 4.4s, like 4.47, 4.48, probably in that Jalen Reagor territory. But it's his route running, it's the technical side, it's his hands, it's everything about his game that doesn't. He's like the antithesis to like a Henry Ruggs. You know what I'm saying? Henry Ruggs is like, well, he has S-tier athletic ability. Everything else will come along with it. And you look at somebody like Devontae Smith, not a bad athlete, but he has everything else that you're looking for in a wide receiver. And he's also not slow. So that bodes well for the Philadelphia Eagles. Devontae Smith is absolutely the most talented wide receiver that's been in Philadelphia Eagles locker room for a decade plus now. And I'm excited to see what he can do with Jalen Hurts or whoever is the Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Because you can't forget, we got Joe Flacco on the roster, Super Bowl MVP. Could be their starter. So pick 37 is up now in the second round. This is where I was screaming for one player in particular. Philadelphia decided at this point to go with Landon Dickerson, which is, again, not bad value at all. Just the injury concerns scare me. And this is like now one of those things that the dust is settled. I don't hate the idea of adding Landon Dickerson to the offensive line. I do just, like, everything about this selection is strictly medical. If Landon Dickerson had, you know, a Creed Humphrey clean bill of health in Philadelphia decided to grab the Jason Kelsey era at 37, given the body of work of a healthy Landon Dickerson, I'd be fine with it. I just think the two things that go into me disagreeing with this pick is his injury history and how bad the Philadelphia Eagles medical staff is. And also, I believe the player that was on the board that was the correct selection, JOK, Jeremiah Owusu-Koroma from Notre Dame. Safety linebacker hybrid. I guess people said there might have been a little bit of medical as well. Something with heart. I don't want to go down. I don't really know off the top of my head. But what I think he could bring is that he could absolutely been the Darius Leonard style linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles defense. Now, stylistically, not the exact same. Darius Leonard can blitz very, very well, very efficient. sideline to sideline, and at times Darius Leonard's not the greatest, even though he gets PBUs and interceptions and stuff. Not necessarily like the stickiest guy in coverage. But in terms of like, he's that guy. He is that focal piece in the defense. He was the, you look at the Philadelphia Eagles defense with Gannon. So we have like influence from Minnesota and we have influence from the Colts. And what are the two things those two teams have? They have their guy at linebacker. The Vikings have an Eric Hendricks. That's their do-it-all, drop back into coverage. And then you have your Darius Leonard, who, while he drops back into coverage, he's kind of their do-it-all, go-to moving piece. That's just, he's their eliminator. They try to have him just eliminate that little bit of the middle of the field that the safeties can't handle. And I think JOK could have done that for the Philadelphia Eagles. 200 some pounds, 210, 215, that's what Darius Leonard weighs. So from a profile standpoint, they kind of fit the same. But with JOK, you get a lot more coverage ability. You get a guy that's going to be immensely comfortable covering tight ends, immensely comfortable covering the running backs, and for what he doesn't really give you as a blitzer, which is fine because we don't blitz in Philadelphia now with the new linebackers. He makes up. He's a thumper still. He still throws around weight. You think about him more as the undersized linebacker, but he's a big safety. And big safety can lay the lumber every now and again. I think this was absolutely a missed opportunity for the Philadelphia Eagles to finally address that linebacker spot. We know that Howie Roseman doesn't value it, but this is my draft. I value it. And frig the Cleveland Browns, because that's the last 2 years. 3 years. JOK, Grant Delpit, Greedy Williams. The last 3 years. They've gotten the guy I want Philly to get that slips out of that first round in the second round, and he ends up a goddamn member of the Cleveland Browns. We're back on the clock at pick 73. This is where Philadelphia went with Milton Williams, Milto William, who's S-tier athlete, defensive tackle. Defensive tackle 3 is absolutely a need for the Philadelphia Eagles. If I was going defensive tackle, though, I think I definitely would have had Davion Nixon higher on my board. Then once it gets down here to Feli, Togiai, Milton Williams, probably there. I think Nixon would have been head and shoulders my guy. But for here in Philadelphia, this is where I'm going to differ for Howie Roseman. He likes to build the lines. I think you can get that value later on, especially now because I am able to operate within hindsight. This is where I'm going to go grab a corner, and I feel like the best outside corner. I'm intrigued by Melifonwu with the length, but I just think with the understanding of I want a corner that has some upside, but I also want a corner that has a chance to start on the other side of Darius Slay. And let's be honest, still, even though everybody that is kind of upset with the one missing piece, even though no disrespect to Zach McPherson, I actually kind of like that selection. I was debating not going corner here and just keeping McPherson in the 4th round because I do think that was not bad value and he's a great scheme fit. But Zach McPherson might not be an outside corner. And still, like, point being, the optics is like, oh my God, Philly's going with a 3rd round pick as a starter at corner next year. Still not that great, but at this spot at 73, I think Paulson Adebo from Stanford is going to give you that highest opportunity of schematically, maybe not a perfect scheme fit, but he has shown that he's able to tackle at Stanford, which is important, but he's an absolute ball hawk. Interceptions, pass breakups, production, tested well at his pro day. I think I would have addressed corner maybe a round earlier than the Philadelphia Eagles did and grabbed Adebo and worried about defensive line a little later. So now we're up back here at 123 in the 4th round. This is where Zach McPherson was the selection for the Philadelphia Eagles. And given this board, because I didn't grab that defensive tackle in the 3rd round where they got Milton Williams, I'm still going to address that position because it is my BPA. I'm going to have the Philadelphia Eagles get the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year, Davion Nixon. Not as an explosive an athlete as Milton Williams, but I think I want to say pretty close because we don't know, like for like off the top of my head because they both had their pro days. But when you watch them on film, it's one of those things where Milton Williams is explosive in his pro day, and you're like, wow, does that really line up with what you saw with Milton Williams on tape? And it's inconsistent. You see a guy that's a good athlete, a little bit short in Milton Williams, but you don't think he's like an S-tier athlete, which he actually is. And you look at someone like Davion Nixon, who's a good athlete, but it's like one of those things where like Milton Williams testing kind of more so lines up with Davion Nixon's tape than it does his own. So there, I'm grabbing Davion Nixon to still improve that defensive tackle 3 spot for the Philadelphia Eagles. Kicker just went off the board. Eagles are upset, I'm sure. But at 150, I'm staying exactly with where the Philadelphia Eagles went. This was maybe my favorite pick in the entirety of this draft. Kenneth Gainwell out of Memphis. I've already talked about this pick into pretty extensive depth, but ultimately I think he can be the Nyheim Hines to Nick Sirianni's offense here in Philadelphia. Gainwell had absurd production in 2019 for Memphis. Only really a 1-year starter, which It's a positive and a negative. Obviously, 1 year limited reps, but also low mileage. Very low mileage. I think he's an excellent complement to Miles Sanders, who kind of regressed immensely as a receiving back. I thought we saw okay hands from Miles Sanders as a rookie at Penn State for Philly, but then in year 2, he was one of the worst receiving backs in the league. So Gainwell is that three-headed attack. Gainwell, Miles Sanders, Boston Scott, and the things that Gainwell can do to complement those 2 other running backs. It was a home run pick for the Philadelphia Eagles at 150, and I'm keeping it right here in my own mock draft. This is actually probably the hardest pick for me. At 189, Philly got Marlon Tuipulotu from USC. Immense value, depending on what big board you're going after. like I said, refer to Dane Brugler, had him as a second, third rounder. It's solid value. Adding in another defensive tackle in my mock after Davion Nixon kind of goes in line as well. Philadelphia grabbed 2 defensive tackles as well. But I'm thinking here at 189, I do want to show a little bit of love to the offensive line. Now, not necessarily a center, but again, kind of thinking like the Philadelphia Eagles going BPA, similar ballpark of Landon Dickerson selection where there are some medical concerns, but I just think it'd be too much value at 189 to pass up on Trey Smith, an absolute powerhouse who I think Jeff Stoutland, who's an outstanding offensive line coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, could coach up. So much like Landon Dickerson, best case scenario for him is that he could potentially beat out maybe Isaac Seumalo at left guard and then essentially move on to be the successor for Jason Kelce. Wouldn't get that second part with this Trey Smith selection, but I think immediately you're adding competition to that left guard spot and adding more depth to an offensive line that just could not stay healthy last season. So 189, I'm selecting Trey Smith from Tennessee. Obviously, I get great hindsight here because throughout this entire process, if you're following me on Twitter, you know everyone was just screaming, everybody, not just Eagles fans, everybody's like, why is Dylan Moses falling? Now knowing that he went as a UDFA kind of gives you a little bit more playing room of like, I'm not going to grab Dylan Moses here. We'll just let him hit UDFA, and then in this hypothetical, I would offer him the most money because that is an absolute lottery ticket. But here, as we continue to build our squad at 191, I actually will go here to the secondary, and I'm going to select Greedy Williams' little brother, Rodarius Williams, who I think is kind of the Zach McPherson selection for me. I think he is going to excel in a zone scheme. He loves to tackle, which is great. Good production, kind of a breakout year at Oklahoma State, and gives you that little bit of outside ability. 6 feet tall, can run, not an S-tier athlete, but a good athlete. So this is my makeup for the Zach McPherson selection, getting a guy that I think is going to be a solid zone corner in the NFL. We're back on the clock again at 224, and I'm staying with the actual Eagles pick here of Jacoby Stevens. Now, because we were able to get JOK, you might feel like there's a little overlap, but again, I think either or, if one of these guys emerges as a strong safety, which, hey, you know, we have Rodney McLeod coming off that injury. We can have another box safety. Right now, we have more so finesse safeties. You know, Kavon Wallace, Anthony Harris, these are not necessarily your big thumpers, you guys that are going to contribute immediately in the run game. I still think that there is absolutely a way that Jacoby Stevens and a JOK can operate within the same defense. Stevens was always one of my favorite picks from this draft. That, Devontae Smith, and Kenneth Gainwell. So there's pretty much a 0% chance I wasn't going to remake the selection. It was good for Philly. And I think now, like how it actually works out for Philly, I think because we didn't get JOK, if we didn't get that, you told me C4, we didn't get JOK. Put yourself in this scenario. I'm going to say, it's Jabril Cox on the board. You say, no, he went to Dallas. I would go, all right, let's wait. And then it's at the latest spot that we can get to Jacoby Stevens from LSU, hybrid type player, pull that trigger there, and we were able to grab him in the 6th round. And with our final selection at 234, this is where like I actually credit the Eagles. Eagles generally do well, in my opinion, with the UDFAs. Because at 234, this was the board. I would absolutely be considering Dylan Moses just to get your lottery ticket. He's probably hoping Dylan Moses that he's going to hit UDFA, can just pick where he wants to go, get probably the most money. I don't know necessarily if he got paid the most, but it must have been up there. Just because we got Jacoby Stevens and JOK, I'm not going to go completely overboard. We know he went UDFA, and I would just put in this hypothetical. That's the whole thing. I would have backed up the Brinks truck to get him in UDFA. But speaking of those UDFAs, at 234, I absolutely would have considered Jamie Newman, who Philadelphia actually signed on as a UDFA. I also would have absolutely considered Trevon Grimes from the Florida Gators, who went as a UDFA, who signed on with the Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, we have the connection there as the Gators OC last year. Brian Johnson is now the QB coach in Philadelphia. But for me, Grimes and Terry would have easily been wide receiver 1 and 2, I think. Even Kay Johnson wouldn't have been that bad. Had a good Senior Bowl, more of a slot wide receiver. Even Surratt, big outside possession guy, can't be any worse than, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, but I think I'm going to kind of go in line with the Philadelphia Eagles here. They ended up getting Patrick Johnson from Tulane. Classify him as a linebacker, but let's be honest, he was an edge rusher. Philly, in my mock, don't really have an edge rusher yet. We have Davion Nixon on the defensive line. That's about it. So my highest edge rusher, and we also got Teron Jackson, who I did not dislike that selection. But for me, looking for a pure edge rusher, understanding that we went Patrick Johnson, so he's in that Gennard Avery. We'll put him as a linebacker, but he's got to be, probably an edge specialist, a rush specialist. I would have grabbed Shaka Toney from Penn State. I would have went with the athletic upside, but ultimately not overly upset with the Patrick Johnson selection. I just think, give me the slight edge to Toney, a little bit more burst off the edge, because those Penn State guys are, for whatever reason, I don't know what's in the water there, but they're all very, very good athletes. So that's how my mock draft would have lined up with the Philadelphia Eagles. We both agreed Devontae Smith in the first round. Then into the second round, I would have went JOK over Landon Dickerson just to get that linebacker that we really don't have on the roster. And it's one of those things, too, now that I can reflect on the linebacker, who would have thought me being excited that the Philadelphia Eagles got Eric Wilson from the Minnesota Vikings, maybe that signing was it for them to kind of kick that can down the road on drafting a linebacker, and depending on they announced Jacoby Stevens way late as a linebacker. Maybe they thought they would go to Eric Wilson. Maybe the Eagles are super high on Davion Taylor, way higher than the fan base is particularly. But I would have went JOK over Landon Dickerson. And then with the next selection in the third round at 73, I would have went Paulson Adebo, outside corner, whereas Philadelphia decided to go with Milto William. And then we have at pick 123, this is where Philadelphia grabbed Zach McPherson, corner from Texas Tech. I would have went Davion Nixon at defensive line, even though, again, I agree with that Zach McPherson selection. I just think Nixon, because I didn't get in Milton Williams, I didn't get that defensive tackle 3 in the previous round, I would address that need right there at 123. 150, and agreed to the Eagles, Kenny Gainwell. Outstanding selection. Very, very happy with that. Into the sixth round at 189. Our first pick, I'm going Trey Smith. That is just too much value for me to pass up to try to improve the offensive line. 191, I'm grabbing Rodarius Williams, another corner that has the ability to play on the outside. Not too worried about that slot position because I do think Avonte Maddox is a really solid slot corner. And then we got at 224, Jacoby Stevens. I'll stay in line with that Philadelphia Eagles selection, and you can start to see if you're trying to... I eventually started to cheat a little bit with these picks because I knew that, we were pretty much done for Philadelphia. If I could make the right pick, I would, but I wasn't so worried about the trades. It was more so I had the players going at their play spot, not necessarily the teams. Give me a break. And then we finished in the seventh round. I grabbed Shaka Toney from Penn State as our edge rusher. Really kind of breaks even with what Philadelphia did with Mr. Patrick Johnson from Tulane. So who do you think did a better draft? C4, Howie Roseman. Only time will tell. But thank you guys for entertaining this incredibly... Doesn't really matter, why I'm doing this, but... Thanks for watching anyways. It makes me feel better about my draft knowledge. But let me know what you guys generally would think. Whose draft stacks up better, C4's or Howie Roseman? And let me know what you think about my mock draft. Do you think I got the player wrong? What? That's actually a better question. Would you have gone any different player than any of my selections at any of those Philadelphia Eagles picks? Let me know in the comment section below. We'll be back tomorrow. I think we might have a Trey Lance 49ers rebuild. I think that's what I'm going to go work on right now. So thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys then. Like, subscribe, definitely leave a comment, and I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching, and peace out.